All right, we can settle in. We got to get started. Thanks for making it to the April OPA meeting. Good to have so many people here. In case you don't know, my name is Sean Besser. I'm president of Ocean Park Association. And we're going to jump into guests first, because I know one or two of the guests need to skedaddle to family or other obligations. After that, let's do some more open forum, talking about housing, other sort of agenda and calendar that's coming up, and go from there. So I'm going to kick off as usual with Santa Monica Police Department. We've got Community Resource Officer Halima Barreto, I believe, on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, perfect. Well, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to get into it here, and then Officer Avila is actually supposed to be trying to log on. I think he might be having some technical difficulties, so I'm hoping he's able to get on here and say hello. But I'll get started with some of the data here.
Person here, Halima, and the media officer Howard.
Oh, hi. Okay, so we had two burglaries of note. One of them was a garage break-in where a bike was stolen, and the other one, there was an entry that was made into a unit that was on the 2500 block of 3rd Street. The bolt was broken on the door, and entry was made. They were unsure at the time of the report what was taken, if anything, but there was certainly entry made into the actual home. And then we had, as far as vehicle burglaries go, that we tend to see a little higher number. I only saw 2 of those. However, what I did see a higher number of was Grand Theft Auto, where the entire vehicle was stolen. So there were 5 of those particular incidents. They weren't necessarily grouped in a particular area. I didn't see any patterns with it per se, but I don't usually see as many in these busier locations, but just something to note. And then one catalytic converter theft. I think I had mentioned in the last month that we had seen a big decline over the last year, and there had been a bit of a slight uptick, and it looks like that's settled. But we were working potentially with Honda of Santa Monica to have our next etch and catch. We do want to focus on some of the areas like the Sunset Park areas, and then the northern side of the city where you have some of the darker streets, and those areas tend to get targeted more often with with catalytic converter thefts. So when we do have our etch and catch event, we'll be sending it out to the neighborhood associations with a focus on those particular residents. And of course, anyone is welcome to join. We've done them in the past where we have an invite on Eventbrite. And then via Eventbrite, you can sign up for slots. There are not too many slots that we're able to open, but they do fill up quickly. But we do want to have as many as we can to increase just the knowledge of catalytic converter thefts and have people be educated on this and share information. And then the other thing I want to talk about were 2 particular recent incidents that have been sort of a big topic of discussion. One of them was a really tragic incident that happened on Friday. As I was doing the data for the OPA area, for some reason it didn't pop up, and I think it may have been just like right at the cusp, and that's why I didn't come up here, but I want to talk about it. If some of you may have seen our posts on social media and seen some buzzing about an incident that happened where a pit bull attacked a small toy poodle, and unfortunately the toy poodle was not able to survive the attack. And at this time, our animal control unit has taken over that investigation. Once that is complete and they can identify the suspect, which is part of what we have put out on social media, just asking for help from the community. We've gotten a lot of information from that. They will then determine if there's any enforcement or any action that can be taken in any appropriate situation. Generally speaking, with these potential violations, they do fall under misdemeanor level offenses. They could include municipal code violations. Usually they're related to leash laws or failure to control a dangerous dog or failure to provide any identifying information following a dog bite. So it just depends on what details come out of that situation. And then beyond that, any potential civil consequences that could also come into play depending on what the parties decide to pursue. So hopefully we do have the ability to share more on this and get more information on the investigation during the week. And if we do, we'll probably be putting out a press release or something out on our social media channels. So if you don't see that, you can certainly reach out if you have any additional questions. And the other one, you may have received an SM alert on Thursday. This was on the 10th of a traffic collision. The SM alert, I believe, read 4th and Ocean Park that it was just sort of to clear the area. That isn't a current open investigation. And what I do know from that is that it was determined that it was a stolen vehicle, and this then led to the traffic collision. So that is still ongoing. But if anybody does have any information to share with us, we can put you in touch with the detectives that are reviewing that at that time. Officer Avila just texted me, he and technology are not getting along right now. I apologize. But he was there actually at the incident with the traffic collision happened, so he did want to share some of that, but we could probably get more information on that later when we're able to release more to the public. So those are the major things I have right now. I think we have a farmers market coffee with a cop at Virginia Avenue Park coming up. That's going to be next month. And then this month, we're going to be at the YMCA on the 19th for Healthy Kids Day, and we'll be at Virginia Avenue Park for their Arts and Literacy Festival on the 26th. And then I'm working on another farmers market on Main Street, a pop-up there that would probably be June 1st, I believe. It's the first weekend of June. So that was a little further out, but I'll be putting that information out for all of you to join us for it. But with that being said, I will open it up to any questions unless Officer Hollowell has something to say before we do that.
Oh, I do actually. I want to say I want to give you guys congratulations, because when there is not an extreme uptick in crime, that means the people in the community are doing their part. If you happen to be not doing your part, I'm going to tell you how you can do your part. Make sure you're locking your doors to your vehicles. You're being aware. And you're not in your cell phone when you're walking down the street. You're actually up and aware. If you are listening to any music or podcast or talking to a friend, you have one earbud in your ear opposed to two earbuds, so that you can be aware of your surroundings. Watching when you're crossing, even though the vehicles may not have the right of way, realize that you're smaller and less powerful than a vehicle, and watch out for the vehicles. If you should see something, say something. Don't place it on Nextdoor, as we're not monitoring Nextdoor. Please call us. Don't 311 us. Call us on the police non-emergency or emergency line, and we'll respond to any calls for service, or they'll forward you to our office if it's not emergency and it's a long-term sustainable problem. But please do not bifurcate and start putting things on Nextdoor and Instagram and Twitter, and it's very difficult for us to monitor all the different platforms. It is easy for us to push information, but to get information and officers to respond, please utilize our non-emergency or our emergency lines, and we can respond. So again, congratulations to you. If you weren't helping in the work, join in so we can keep crime down in Ocean Park.
Thank you.
You had a question, ma'am?
I wanted to say that worked out well for me. It's in the preschool, Portland Street, Washington, children's school, and there were teenage boys riding tricycles and skateboarding within the facility that was closed. They called it down, you just indicated. The police came right away to cure the situation, which is great.
Great. What part of New York are you from?
New York City,
What borough?
Queens.
Queens.
Lower East Side.
You've probably been here for a while, but you still have the accent.
But she lives on my street.
Right. Does anyone else have any?
Any other questions? I actually had a question as it relates to the catalytic converter etch program. Any thoughts on evolving that to a cage program instead of an etch program? As someone that just had my catalytic converter stolen, I was told that doesn't really do much good these days because they're not reselling them, they're melting them, and the etching doesn't stop that.
I've done a lot of research on the cages. Do you know the numbers offhand, Halima?
As far as like what gets stolen with a cage or?
No, how much the cages actually cost to.
Oh, I think they're around like $300. I don't think that we could finance that, but I know in the past what we have done is talk to different just auto body shops in the city and then told them, if they mention SMPD, can you offer a discount? So, that's certainly something we can revisit with them. We did this like right after the pandemic, so it's a couple of years back. But we can definitely go out and do something like that and kind of pair that with the itch and catch for awareness purposes. But we wouldn't be the ones providing the cages.
Right.
Or get an electric vehicle.
Or yes.
Cool.
Steal your battery.
Dave, Dave has a question in the back.
I got 2 burgers taken out of our CRV.
In 1 month.
That was this
I'll
month.
get back probably a month later and just got the new one.
Impressive.
And then we got a cage. I'll get the address and put it out later, but it was about 250
That's a while back.
and that stopped out.
Yeah, it just makes them more difficult to steal. When they're not caged, the timing on it is very quick. You would actually be surprised. They usually 3-man teams, a driver, a lookout, and the person actually removes the catalytic converter. It's done in probably 30 seconds to a minute. They're under there, they saw it off, they're in the wind. By the time you call the police, if you have not been looking at the vehicle come down the street, is very difficult. The way that we have caught them is in the past is when they try to do multiple in a particular area, the vehicle's still in the area. And then, of course, it's a no chase policy for us. So they've crashed or done something weird, and then we've able to be in custody. But sometimes we actually see the vehicle, there's a sighting, they flee because it's a property crime without violence. We have a no chase policy for that.
Okay.
Is there particular types of cars that are more vulnerable to the catalytic?
For some reason, I want to say Prius.
Yeah, Prius are super
Yeah.
popular.
Is that what you're supposed to?
Prius, and it's the height of
As
the vehicle,
sisters.
the placement and the height of the vehicle off the ground. The lower the vehicle, the more difficult it is to get under there. They have to lift it. For Prius, I think you just get under there because Prius, it's pretty high off the ground.
So make your Prius a lowrider. Good.
I think the RAV4s were another one that were targeted for a while. So yeah, like I have a Honda Civic that's really low to the ground, so it's harder for someone to be able to get under there. Not impossible, but it's very rare in those scenarios. So like the higher trucks, like pickup trucks and things like that, they usually get targeted.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, officers, for making time for us tonight and for everything you're doing.
Thank you all for being great.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Next up on the agenda, we've got Elaine Polachek, our interim city manager, who wanted to come introduce herself or reintroduce herself to OPA and field any questions, please.
Well, it's nice to see so many familiar faces. I'm Elaine Polachek. I am the interim city manager for the city of Santa Monica. I was appointed by the council back in January, just after the former city manager, David White, decided to resign. For those of you who don't know me, I spent about almost 28 years with the city in a variety of different capacities. I was back in the day, I worked with Judy at the pier. I was at the pier from 1984 to 1996, working on the revitalization and redevelopment of the pier. And then I moved over to the actual city of Santa Monica and started as the beach manager, and then became the open space manager. And I won't tell you all the positions, but I moved up into assistant city manager, and I was assistant city manager for 7 years and became interim city manager just before another city manager was hired. So I've worked in the city a long time. I know the landscape fairly well, but I've been gone for 8 years, and it's really interesting how much the city has changed in 8 years. And we're facing a lot of different challenges right now. An interim city manager is really responsible for kind of keeping their hands on the wheel, making sure we're moving in the right direction. Usually, and I figure I'm going to be here for between 4 and 6 months, while the city council is recruiting for a new city manager. So it's not to say that we're not undertaking a lot. We're actually moving the needle on a lot of different initiatives. But for some of the bigger things, the new city manager will come in and start to make those decisions. So particularly with hiring at the department head level, if there are any vacancies, I'll want to wait for the new city manager to come in and he or she will make those decisions. But there have been a lot of changes in the 8 years. Obviously, COVID really took a toll on the city, took a toll on the city staff, on city finances, and we're still working our way through those. There have been changes in city council. There's a new city council that just came in last November through the election. And since I left, there have been 3 city managers. That's a lot of churn in a city. And it's a lot of churn in a city that's been pretty stable over the years. So I want to talk a little bit about my observations over the course of the last couple months. I left here in 2017. I retired in 2017 from the city. And at that point, I would say that Santa Monica was really a city of choice. It was a city of choice for employees. We were the place that employees wanted to come to work. We were the city of choice for businesses. Many, many businesses wanted to locate here. And at that point, we were a very picky city. We did not make it so easy for businesses to come to Santa Monica. We were known as the city of no. We're going to make it hard on you because we could, because we were fortunate enough to have the resources to attract who we wanted and to say no who we didn't want. Well, that's not the case anymore. It is very competitive out there. And we're competing with LA, Beverly Hills, Culver City, West Hollywood. We are not necessarily the city of choice for employment either. Many other cities can be more competitive than we are. So it makes it hard for us. As many of you know, we're facing some significant financial issues in the city. We are having a structural deficit in our budget, which means our expenditures are outpacing our revenues. And there's a gap that we can't close. We've been fortunate over the last couple of years of being able to plug that gap with reserves and some other sources of revenue, but that can't continue. And so we have to make some hard choices this year. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I will be the one shepherding the budget through the city council approval process in June. We have budget hearings in May. I've tasked all departments to come up with cut scenarios, expenditure reduction scenarios, as well as revenue proposals. We will take revenue proposals first before we have to look at expenditure reductions, but we will be looking at expenditure reductions. That means there'll be reductions in services. That's just the way it works. Our city is based, our budget is 70% people. We're trying not to lay off people, but we will probably be freezing positions and looking at other ways to cut our budget. So back in March 8th to be exact, the city council held a budget workshop to set their priorities for this year. And they came up with 3 priorities: unleashing economic opportunity and growth, affordable, livable, and secure homes for all, and clean streets and safe neighborhoods. So those are the focus of our budget coming up. And we're trying to have our expenditures really focus on meeting those priorities. In addition, Measure K, which was passed, I'm sorry, I don't exactly remember the date. It was a couple of years ago, I think. It was last November, thank you. Measure K was a tax initiative where there was an advisory measure with it, Measure PSK, P for public safety, PS for public safety, and K for mobility. And so with that measure, we have revenue that's going to be generated. We think close to about $6 million. And that advisory measure said that half of that money goes to public safety, at least half that money goes to public safety, and the remainder goes to safe streets and mobility. So we are putting together a number of initiatives for council to consider. Sir?
Yes, I was wondering, you said public safety and safe streets. Safe streets, is that going to become law enforcement as well as with the public safety aspect?
Well, that this public safety is a number of things. It's not just law enforcement. There are a number of things that we are identifying for public safety. There's traffic enforcement. There are our streetlights. We have copper theft right now that's working its way through the city, and many of
That be, lights would be safe streets, are you referencing that?
no, not necessarily.
Safety?
Yep, because they're all connected.
Okay.
Without streetlights, it's dark, crime, we can have more crime. So, but if you'll let me, I'll take questions after I'm done.
Yeah.
That's okay?
All right.
Okay. So foundational to the three priorities that council has come up with are things that you're familiar with, our values in Santa Monica, which are sustainability. That's an important value for the city. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. They're foundational to what we do in the city, and we haven't lost that. I figure for the next 3 months, these are the kinds of things that I'm working on. One, get this budget adopted. It gets us through the next 2 years. It's a 2-year budget. The first year is adopted, and the second year is essentially advisory, and the council then adopts it the following June. As I mentioned, expenditure reductions. We're looking for new revenue opportunities. We cannot keep adding to our budget because we just don't have the checks to cash to pay for it. So we're trying to really be measured in how we approach this, even though council members and members of the community are going to want new things. We may not be able to say yes to those. We're in labor negotiations right now. We have 11 bargaining units in the city, and we are in labor negotiations with all 11. This is really unusual for the city. In my recollection, the years were staggered. So you did half in 1 year, half in the other year. And I'm not sure what transpired, but all 11 are on. And it's a difficult proposition. Our employees, even though they understand, at least I think they understand the financial situation that they're in, think that the choice that we should make is to pay them more. And so we're negotiating, and it's hard. But that's the reality that we're in now. So a tough budget and labor negotiations, I'd like to get done before I leave. I really want to focus on the economic development piece because I think that's the upside that the city has to look forward to in the coming years. We have a new community development director, and I think she should come to OPA at some point. Her name is Armine Shaparian. She has a lot of experience in economic development. She's a former city manager, actually. Her last position was city manager of South Pasadena. She comes with a ton of energy and a lot of experience, and I'm excited to get the chance to work with her, albeit for a short period of time. I think she's going to make a big difference in the city. And so her focus is saying that every planning activity involves economic development. We have to look at opportunities as we move forward. We have to become a business-friendly culture. We have to expedite processing. You know, we have a reputation, not the easiest place, again, to do business, or for businesses or for the community for that matter. We want to have a say yes attitude as opposed to the say no attitude that we haven't had for a while, but that's perception. And then we want to approach everything with an opportunistic attitude. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking with economic development. We're working with our partners. We're celebrating successes when we have them. We do have new businesses coming to Santa Monica. We want to welcome them. All of you understand buy local, and I know particularly in OPA, you're strong supporters of the business community here on Main Street and elsewhere in the city. And I urge you to continue that. It's really important. Businesses are facing difficulties now. We have tariffs that are making it harder. We have other issues with the federal government that are making harder for business. So I urge you to continue to support local government. I'm almost done. Give me 1 second. And I just want to touch on a couple of other projects that we're working on. As many of you know, the fires in Palisades created real difficulties for the schools there. 5 elementary schools have relocated to the water gardens, which is great. And it's been really interesting both for the tenants and for the students to be in that environment together. Tenants are trying to do interesting things to encourage the students there. Pally High is relocating to the former Sears building on Main Street. They have been working round the clock to get the building ready to accept students, 2,200 students on April 22nd. And this is an example, this is really an example of how we're changing the perception of Santa Monica. We got them started on doing that renovation while their permits were pending, because we knew we had to expedite. And so we got together, we said, we can make this happen. And we did it. And they're in there. They're doing a ton of work. We've got all hands on deck, police, all of our mobility folks, because 2,200 students descending on that area. The students are coming by bus, by car, by transit, walking. It's a lot of kids. And we want to make sure that it's done safely and in an organized fashion. And so we've had a lot of work done with their staff, with police and mobility, to make sure that we have circulation working out to get those kids in safely. But we also think it's an economic development opportunity. Parents are coming in, they're picking up their kids, maybe they'll stay and have dinner, maybe they'll go shopping. So we hope that that will help help with our businesses in and around the downtown. The city manager recruitment. So something I'm very interested in. So the city council retained a recruitment firm. They, I've never worked with them, but I'm actually pretty impressed with them. They've done a lot of recruitment. They're a woman-owned firm. They've done a lot of really good recruitments. The recruitment closes this Thursday. They have already received 170 applications. So probably a third of them are well qualified, I would say. But this shows you that times have changed. I think the city council that is seated right now is helping us attract a better pool of candidates. And so what they will do, is vet those candidates, get it down to the number that they'll run through 2 panels, one with city council, and then one with some department heads, some of the staff from the city manager's office. I think superintendent from the school district, and then maybe some other subject matter experts. Their first set of interviews, I believe, is May 3rd, and their second panel is May 15th. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to name a new city manager maybe sometime in June, which would be great. And hopefully somebody could be in position July, August, somewhere in there. So that's moving along. The airport conversion project, those of you who may have been involved, there have been a number of outreach initiatives associated with rethinking what should happen to the airport after December of 2028 when it closes. There's now a request for what they're saying letters of interest. So how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to finance it? Right now, we've got some airport uses still at the airport, but the idea is to have a park. The city council asked the consultants to come back with 3 scenarios, 2 of which will include some housing. So even though there was Measure LC that said only park and recreational uses, bless you, there may be opportunity to go back to the voters if housing is going to be part of that. Civic Auditorium, some of you may know that we entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement with RPG, which is a firm that's comprised of some real heavy hitters in the entertainment industry. And so they are now taking a very focused look at what it will take to bring that building back to life. There is probably $100 million worth of seismic work that needs to be done, let alone what needs to happen to convert it into a venue for entertainment. So they're gonna, I mean, hopefully they have deep pockets to be able to do this, but we'll get a better sense of that. The Olympics, you probably know that the city was in negotiations with LA28 for what, 4 years maybe? And we kept working with them, but as you probably saw from the news, they contacted us last week and said they were ceasing negotiations with us, which in my opinion is not a bad thing. When we did the economic analysis for this, The cost, first of all, the deal was not to be negotiated. There's no financial backstop for the city. There's a financial backstop for LA, but not for the venue cities. And so it would have put Santa Monica at risk for a significant amount of money and without the revenue upside. Plus, it was incredibly restrictive. No branding opportunities, very little marketing. It all had to go through LA 28. So with us not doing the Olympics here, we will have, I think, all of the upside. Our hotels will be full. People want to stay here. People want to come to Santa Monica if they're coming to the Olympics to be at the beach, to see the pier, to enjoy all the things that we have to offer. So based on the analysis that was done by HRNA, we think we will realize probably $10 to $12 million in revenue by not hosting. So I think there's an upside. We're going to be we've already been approached by countries. So with the Olympics, the countries do what they call hospitality houses. They set them up all wherever the Olympics are going to take place. So in Barcelona, they had a whole village, and where was the last Olympics? In Beijing, they had a village. Paris, they had a village. Thank you. So they've already approached us, I think, 3 or 4 countries about having their hospitality houses here in Santa Monica. So we're excited about that. That means that they also pay us, and they also will do some legacy projects. So we've talked to France about setting up and coming early, doing something with Camera Obscura. So we think we can generate some good outcomes for the community from working with these hospitality houses and watch parties and branding and marketing opportunities. The IOC wants to have their headquarters for broadcast here in Santa Monica. So that's separate and apart from LA 28. So I think a lot of good things will come from that. And lastly, I want to touch on one thing that you're probably, you may ask me about. And so I asked about it. And that's Nielsen Way. I think there was been a lot of concern about speed on Nielsen Way. I know.
Must want to die.
Well, so let me see what I got. So I wanted to at least come prepared with some information. So there was a speed study done, and that's complete. All speeds are reduced to 25 miles an hour, except as noted. Nielsen Way between Pico and Marine, second between Wilshire and Colorado, Main Street between Colorado and Pico, Ocean Avenue, between the Northern City Limit and Pico, and Lincoln from the 10 to Pico. So that's been reduced to 30. So they also looked at speed humps. I guess that was something that the community was really interested in. And they did a lot of work on that, but because the way I understand it, and I only had this explained to me very briefly this afternoon, because of the way Nielsen is constructed with the median in the middle, it's very hard to have a car to allow fire. So speed is reduced by speed humps, speed cushions, or speed tables. And it's the fire department that really is the one that weighs in on this, because if their speed is reduced in response to an emergency call, that's a problem. So it's very difficult to create that configuration on Nielsen, is what I've been told. And I can get you more information on it. I just wanted to at least touch on it because I know it's something that many of you were concerned about. So with that, no, I've gone over my time a little bit, but I can take some questions, and I will tell you if I don't know the answer, because I may not know the answer.
Great, in the corner.
Thank you so much for all of your service and for being here tonight, first of all. On the subject of economic opportunities, I've often wondered as an Ocean Park resident, what potentially could be done about all of these businesses who don't renew their leases with their tenants and jack up the rent, and then nobody comes back. Like, we have this Budget Market building across from Hotchkiss Park that has been vacant for years now. And I remember talking to the owners before they closed, and they said the landlords are jacking up their rent, they can't afford this anymore. And it's been gone for years. And so not only is it a detriment to the community, but the city is losing all that sales tax revenue. for all these landlords that jack up their prices and that they don't get replaced with tenants. So is there some sort of legislation that the city could enact that would provide that these landlords who do this sort of thing and are not able to get tenants to replace once they jack their rent up, that they have to pay some sort of penalty so that there's a disincentive for them to do this and then leave the community stranded without the services that were there before. And there's blight on Main Street as well from businesses that have been gone, restaurants that have been gone for years. And it just feels like there's no hope in getting them back unless there's some incentive to the landlords, the owners, to get tenants back in there. We're never going to see a tenant back in there again. We're never gonna get that sales tax revenue again. So I don't know how that's feasible legally, if there's some sort of impediment to doing that, if cities don't have authority to provide that, but if not, can we ask Sacramento, our legislators, our senator and assembly member who represent this area to try to do something like that as a pilot program maybe, because I suspect that this is not an issue that is facing, or that Santa Monica faces by itself. This is probably a statewide issue, but I'm so tired of these businesses being vacant by what seems like to be greedy owners, and then we lose the tenants and services for good. So thank you again for all of your service.
So there's two components. Right now, code enforcement is doing a survey of vacant properties. And they're reaching out to owners and taking a look at, are they being well maintained? I mean, is it a situation where it's a blighted property? And if so, they're reaching out to the owners and making them bring it up to code. Secondly, one of the things that we're looking at is a vacancy tax.
Okay.
And so with a vacancy tax, there could be the ability to do just as you said, to then reach out if landlords are for whatever reason not renting their properties, then pay the vacancy tax.
Okay.
So that's in the works, just starting, but definitely in the works. So step one is to do the survey of all of the vacant properties, and then step two is to figure out how to move this vacancy tax.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, I wanted to talk about the city's message
Yes.
or lack thereof. Specifically in regards to just how broke we are. I do not think residents understand the dire shape that we are in, the type of trade-offs that are going to be necessary. As you work through the budget and we think about economic opportunity, there are some of us who think we have a solid understanding, and that's why we would support things like selling the Civic. Because we know that can solve a lot of problems fairly quickly. I know some people in the room don't like that, Eric. But I think, what can you do, or what can the city do to help people understand, you know, how bad it is? Because we're not a money tree anymore. And what kind of trade-offs are likely if we save the Civic? You know, what are we gonna have to cut? That's just an example, right?
Well, the thing is, yeah, it is messaging, and it's hard because for so many years, the city was pretty flush. I mean, we weren't facing these kinds of challenges, arbitrary challenges. But we are now. So you're right, messaging is important. Properties like the Civic give you one-time money. And so you get an allotment of, you sell a city property. And by the way, I mean, the Civic is an example of something where, you know, we've got maybe some opportunity to revitalize it and bring it back. And that would be ongoing revenue. So we don't want to hurry into the sale of properties that we've amassed over the years and be short-sighted about the fact that it's just one-time money. We have a structural deficit, so we need to generate ongoing revenue that will support our ongoing expenses. But I take your point, and everything is on the table. I mean, I will share with you some of the cuts that I don't want to share with you because it's so disturbing.
That's what people need to know.
I know. So, for example, one of the cuts that we're looking at is in some park restrooms, closing every other stall of the restroom because we don't have the staff to be able to maintain them on a regular basis. And that just breaks my heart as somebody who came from parks and somebody who oversaw custodians. But this is the severity of the problem that we're dealing with. So we're trying as best we can, again, to focus on revenue generation before service cuts. But it is not going to be easy. And we've tried to message effectively, maybe not so effectively, but you'll see it, you'll see it at the budget. And if you have suggestions of how we can be more effective in our messaging, I'll take it.
I'll be glad to talk to you.
Yeah.
Nielsen way.
Okay.
I'm with you on those.
All right, I knew I only had a little bit of information.
Jerry?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for all your past and present service, Elaine. You're remarkable. And, I guess there's a big difference between having some pretty big challenges or being desperate. I don't think we're desperate. We're a city that's going to move forward. And if we all work together, and if the business community can get involved and support things, the Olympics coming and all these opportunities, the students are going to be moving in April 22nd, and that's Earth Day. And it's something to think about. We have a great city. We have, as you said, values, sustainability, education. We're not going to sacrifice our support for that. We're not going to sacrifice our support for our libraries either. And we've seen that. And the same thing should be with the civic or anything else. We will get out of this. The thing that concerns me a lot are the people that keep saying we're an asylum, we're crazy, do all this stuff. And that catches on and people are afraid to come here wrongly, because I think we have a safe city. We have a clean city, and it doesn't mean there's not room for a lot of improvements. There always is, and everyone wants that. But that's what really pisses me off, are the people that just keep making Santa Monica look like it's not a place to come to. And I wish that would stop. That's it.
Yes, sir.
You're in a budget
Oh, yeah.
deficit, thank you. You're in a budget deficit, like LA City, probably the
Not as
state.
bad.
Huh?
Not as bad as LA.
What about these retirement funds? I don't know, when these people that work for government, they retire like 58 years old, or maybe a little later or a little sooner. What about lengthening the time where they should be working so that we get the work done? I met a guy, a military, retired, I think at 58, he's got another job, meaning the substance isn't there. The substance is where you're gonna retire because you're too old to work. So again, I'm asking, have you considered it, or is it legal with the state to lengthen the time for working so that they can get on retirement funds later on in life?
So they've already done that. CalPERS is the retirement, California Public Employees Retirement System, is the pension fund for City of Santa Monica employees. They have various classes. So if you started in the last few years, the retirement age was increased from 55 to 62. The percentage of salary that you get was also reduced. So they've already done that. Could there be more? Perhaps, but that's actually a separate entity. It's not, the city pays into that. That's CalPERS. That most cities, well, not, yeah, I would say most cities in California are under that, are part of CalPERS. City of LA has its own retirement program.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for, thank,
I know I'm keeping you long.
Just a quick one, you mentioned the 3 points of council earlier.
Yes.
I didn't catch those.
So the 3 priorities are essentially clean and safe, economic development, and housing.
And then just one quick observation on the messaging.
Yes.
When and I've spoken to people, across neighborhoods, and Santa Monica, and several people just looked at the budget and looked at gross revenue and looked at how we're behind and from 2020, or we were behind in the COVID, and the revenue that increased every year, except for 2020 after that. A lot of people think that we should be up, not a lot, like 10 million or 6 million, but if you just break it down, that's how some people are looking at it, just to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, so expenditures have far outpaced revenue. And even the budget instructions this year, we kept our expenditures flat. Normally there's a CPI increase that you give for supplies and expenses. We didn't do that. So everybody knows how much more expensive things have gone. We have to not only absorb that, but then deal with the rest of the structural deficit. So we're doing our best, but it's a hard, it's a hard one. But we'll get through it. I mean, we have to. The council will adopt a balanced budget. We'll figure out what we have to do and move forward. As Jerry said, there's many opportunities for the city to grow and prosper, and I think we will.
Yep, we have to go. Next up on the agenda, we've got Tony Lopez, who joined us a little over a year ago, I think, as a senior parks planner for City of Santa Monica to talk about our master park planning. So I'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting me here today. It's been quite a pleasure. Actually, in 7 days, it will be 1 year. So coming up on that mark. Just a little bit of background. Again, my name is Tony Lopez. I am the city's senior park planner in April of last year. I come from practicing in the field of landscape architecture for 18 years in the city of Los Angeles, doing various streetscape master plans, campus master plans, mixed use planning, et cetera. So I come from the pedigree of not designing with ego. As a designer, I come from community outreach and making decisions that have to do with design based on what the community needs. So right now, when I came to the city, my primary task was completing the update to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Just if you're not familiar with that, a Parks and Recreation Master Plan is typically a 20 to 30-year vision for the park network and the open space network within the city. The last time the city adopted a Parks and Recreation Master Plan was 1997. So we're really coming close to that 30-year mark now. And one of the things that I am really trying to achieve with this master plan is making sure the voice of the community is heard within that document. Now, the Ocean Park Association, you are the 7th neighborhood organization that I've had the pleasure of speaking to on this topic. Everyone in these meetings have given me their feedback as to what they love about their neighborhood, what improvements can happen within the parks in their neighborhood, and what they would envision with their park network in the next 30 to 50 years. And so I just want to extend my invitation to you to reach out to me. I know, Sean, you have an agenda and you're trying to keep it pretty good. So with that, I just want to open it up for a brief discussion. I will send Sean my contact information. If you want to jot it down real quickly, you'll get an email, but it's tony.lopez@santamonica.gov. And I can send the questions I'll ask you now. And let's just have a quick discussion on those. Again, what do you love about your neighborhood? What improvements to the parks in your neighborhood would you like to see happen in the near future? And what would you envision your park network including in the next 30 to 50 years?
Go for it, Jerry.
Well, just real quick, I'm on the Urban Forest Task Force and our landscape team is amazing.
They are.
Matthew Wells and Robert Castaneda, our arborists. They worked so hard after we were lucky to escape the fires, but we didn't escape the winds. So they spent a lot of money out of their budget to make sure the trees are good, and they are. And got a great report that I hope everyone gives them a lot of credit. We're going to need more trees because that's just an important thing for the environment and it helps everybody. And they're doing a good job in all the parks to maintain the trees on public property. And hopefully we can get an ordinance sometime even for private property, but first things first. So more trees. Yeah, go ahead, you, Ted.
Two things. So one's fairly micro, as a dog owner. We have been blessed with a couple of really great dog parks here in Ocean Park. But sometime we explore some of the other dog runs in the city. I just discovered one recently across the post office on 7th Street. And then there's been one in Memorial Park. I don't know if that continues to be there and then
Yeah.
changes coming in Memorial Park. But the surfaces of both of those are decomposed granite as opposed to the wood chips you see in other dog parks. And they actually are that surface is very hard on the paw pads of certain dogs. And when I take a dog there to come back bleeding, I would just suggest that maybe you start thinking about better surface for the actual feet of the dogs. Because they get carried away and they're having so much fun, they're not thinking about the fact that they're hurting themselves and then they're limping the next.
The DG is the worst of.
Yeah, decomposed granite, it's granite. So it's necessarily hard. And then macro thing is, you purview include the state beaches?
Yeah, so the beaches from a park network perspective aren't typically included in the calculation of our park network. However, there will be in the near future a beach master plan, which will run this a similar path as this master plan. So outreach. That I just talked to my boss last week about taking part in that.
Because, as you know, we have that pilot program north of the pier, where we have a couple dune restoration projects. And I just think the city needs to think long-term about doing more of that as we face rising sea levels. Start putting some of those natural dunes that used to be there historically back in place. It will then have a buffer against big storm surges. But otherwise, we've seen what's happened with the PCH because of the fires. You wouldn't want to lose the roadways, et cetera, or the buildings down there. And it also creates wildlife habitat for endangered species like the western squid plover.
Thank you. John, and there, then Judy, then Lucy.
We have, in our little neighborhood, a park called Crescent Bay Park, which is, the forgotten park. I can't remember the last time anyone spent a dime on it other than to mow the lawn. It is in dire need of help, on Sunday mornings. I know this isn't your issue, but we see a church come out, and just without services, start feeding the homeless, becomes unsafe on Sunday mornings. It is just, it's in a really bad shape, ecologically, infrastructure wise, all of it. So I'm just hoping that you can pay special attention to it, because while we've seen other parks get a lot of money and resources, ours isn't. Thank you.
Talking about the Ocean View Park area and the Spiral Hill there, where 3 dead trees were recently, after some period kind of taken out, which leaves now a view from the top of the hill straight into the parking lot of the one of the towers. And if you walk around that park, you can see like the fairy ring effect, where there were trees, probably the last time this survey was done, where things have died, things have been removed. So it's quite sparse on tree coverage compared to whatever it would have been when it was first planted in there. Apart from that, there's the issue of the kids with the electric motorbikes, yeah, where your team have done a great job, I think, with those new barriers up there. And now the kids have started going up the inside the plastic to get the planters onto the grass. So I don't know what's to be done about that, but one thing might be useful to put some sort of fencing around the pathway going up the Spiral Hill to stop that being the ultimate challenge for kids on motorcycles. At the moment, they've started to chew that up. Now they've stopped
moving around
access to the other parts.
Judy?
Hi. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that the Santa Monica History Museum has a tree exhibition, and that you would be pointing people to it, because one of the very interesting things is you can click on the tree in front of your house or building and learn about that tree. You can do any tree in the whole city, but you know, the one you're interested in might be the one in front of where you live.
Yeah.
So I just think that's a really wonderful activity. And it would be really great if the city did something like that so that you could go on the website and click on your address and there's your tree and you can learn about your tree.
Lucy?
I walk the Hotch Park every day, and there are only 4 benches. A lot of the young people bring their own blanket, but that isn't convenient for me to be sitting on a blanket as a senior. And you know, once 4 benches are taken, it's very uncomfortable to just sit there or stand there until somebody vacates something. The other place is only 2 benches in Ozone Park, which they can put a few more benches for people that aren't able to get up and down. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here and for all of your work for the city. I am concerned that I've seen gas leaf blowers be used before by the maintenance crews at city parks.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if there's any monitoring that goes on with that. I assume it's in your contract with them that they're not supposed to use them because they're
I
banned
think
from the
so, yeah.
city. And it's a constant battle to get non-city related people within our city limits to keep using the electric ones, not
What?
the gas ones.
What park did you see?
It's sometimes like center dividers.
The center divided, okay.
That's the ones that I recall most recently.
But also at the Hotchkiss.
Hotchkiss.
At Hotchkiss too.
It's in America's.
Thank you. I've probably seen you there too. I just knew that I see them and I'm so shocked and disturbed that our own city parks are being cleaned with gas leaf blowers that aren't allowed to be used.
No, thank you for that. I will follow up with public landscapes
Thank you.
about that. Cool.
Yes.
Yes, do you have anything to do with the trimming of the trees on some of the streets? Because they stopped trimming the trees on my street, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. They're not trimming the trees anymore.
I personally am not, but I can reach out to public landscape as they have a regimen of when they do that, and I can figure out what. Can you, when I send the email, can you send me an email about what your particular street is, and I could follow up?
Marine Street, from 4th to the beach. Well, mostly between 4th and 2nd Street on Marine, down the hill. I mean, the trees there, they totally are blocking at my apartment. I have to turn on the lights in the morning because they block out the sun completely. And I called the city and they said that they have a schedule. Well, 10 years ago, they would do it every other year. They would be trimming trees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or feedback?
John?
Great.
Guess I'll start with the long range view, with, these apartments going up, supplanting residential, homes that have front and backyards to density, people density, which will be moving into these high-rise apartments that don't have front or backyards. And looking at the airport, I think you should be looking at the airport to provide those green spaces that are being lost for, let's say, healthy living with where you have the front and backyard, which could also be used for gardens, which are they won't have in an emergency. So again, going back to the airport, I hope the city gets involved in looking at that, supplanting that, providing that for the public as they come in.
That's a concern that I've heard from all the neighborhoods is the increase in the population growth should correlate with the increase in the open space provided so that the parks that we currently have aren't overstressed because we're not providing enough parks to offset that.
Right.
I'm curious, are there any plans for like events or activation in the parks, like maybe movie screenings at Hotchkiss or like yoga or something?
Yes, and I work consistently with the Rec and Arts Department, RAD, who is responsible for the programming. And so part of the master plan efforts thus far have been determining what are the next steps in terms of, one of the things we did here when outreach happened with the Arts Commission is that a lot of the artists, a lot of the program venues don't know what's available and where things are available for them. So it's a lot more difficult for them to continually schedule things if they don't know what infrastructure is there. So that's another element of this process that will be able to create something that can be released as here are the opportunities, here's what we can do at these locations.
Thank you. I will make sure Tony's contact information is in the next couple newsletters, so you can send follow-up questions, comments, or addresses for follow-up items. Also regarding the airport, you're going to see in the next 2 or 3 newsletters, there's an ongoing survey right now that the city is undertaking around sort of the next phase of the airport closure plan. If you want to weigh in on that, which I highly recommend all engaged citizens of Santa Monica do, please take that survey. It took me about 12 minutes to complete. And they're thinking about all kinds of aspects from open space to water to housing to you name it. So please weigh in on that. You'll see that in the next few newsletters as well. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Lastly, Charlotte Rosen from Farmers Market to talk about our Market Match program. Please come on up.
This is gonna be super short. I just wanted to give you an update. So we had the Market Match program for 2 years, and this is a program that's really super special and important for the farmers market and for underserved community members who rely on the extra dollars to be able to shop at our farmers market. It's a good way for individuals to get good, fresh, clean, healthy food. And so we had this program it's a grant funded program for 2 years. It was funded by the county. That funding went kind of dried up, and we're currently looking for extra funding right now for through Hunger Action LA, which should start maybe hopefully end of June. But right now we are currently looking for ways to bridge that gap through hopefully community support. We are looking at another grant that's coming through the city that should come through like maybe the end of May. I think that Sean had put out a blast where you could click on a QR code and go to contribute and donate if you so chose to help us out through this difficult time. Otherwise, you know, I do have one of those flyers here to pass around in case you haven't seen it yet. Fingers crossed, we're hoping for the best. We so appreciate everyone in this community for the support that you've given the farmers market. It's just this little glitch that we're in right now that we could use just a little bit of extra support. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carla, maybe people in the room might not know about Market Match. So every single farmer's market, right, they have the info booth, you can get your tokens, right?
Not every single one. So the only 2 farmers markets that currently have or had, because we're kind of in that in between, is Pico and Main Street for the match program. So for all of the farmers market in Santa Monica, yes, we have the EBT CalFresh option so that people can bring their card, swipe for the 4 market currencies and buy whatever they want to at the farmers market, food items. The cool thing about the Market Match program is it lets them stretch out their dollars a little bit more. And so that's why it's kind of critical and key for a lot of folks that are just struggling to survive.
Does this affect the Virginia Avenue market?
No, they're under Hunger Action LA's program, and so hopefully we will soon be under that.
Cool.
Sorry, if I'm not aware, but does the farmers market have like a newsletter? follow and maybe you could, like I forget, and then if there was like a newsletter and then maybe you could check out the social or who the vendors are, so then you maybe get more attached to the vendors.
Yeah, not in, it's tricky because we have 4 farmers markets and only one social media to share, so we can't really do a regular newsletter that way. I do a blog with Santa Monica Daily Press. And yeah, so that's a monthly blog that comes out and I try to put as much information to that as I can. And then, of course, OPA lets me thankfully do the weekly little blogs that we do. And so as far as Market Match goes, when we have funding again, I will definitely be sure to blast it out that way. And then our social media person will blast it out for the other, for the next.
Thank you.
Oh, Ted, sorry, last question.
Anything you can do about that vehicle that keep running its generator all the time at the front of the.
Okay, that's a whole different thing that I'm not prepared to talk about at this moment. I mean, I was just here to come and talk about the Market Match program. Okay.
You've heard that concern.
Every once in a while there's that, but there's so many different concerns that we try to deal with and different issues to work with. The problem is that we, since the pandemic, have had a really hard time getting food vendors into our farmers market, especially hot food vendors. And this is an opportunity for us to have hot food at the farmers market. If they go away, then I get a whole bunch of people saying, where's the hot food? And, we're doing our best to try to mitigate the situation that we're in. We tried, anyway.
It seems a little contradictory that the farmer's market is born out that the sustainability movement haven't.
Well, quite honestly, quite honestly, those food trucks use less energy than a brick and mortar. So we try to, we're, like I said, my job here today was to talk about Market Match, and I would be happy to discuss the others, that issue at another time. And it's something that you definitely get into the farmers market about that issue as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
And just one more pitch on the farmer's market. If you haven't been there lately or regularly, please go. Revenues are down across the board. I'm going to say this about all the businesses on Main Street. Some businesses lost 90% of their revenue in January and February, thanks to the fires and seasonal lack of travel and a variety of other things. I'm on Santa Monica Travel and Tourism board, one of their commissions, and we've been talking about the numbers, and it's deeply disturbing. And businesses are going to start going away even more if we're not supporting them. So please shop on Main Street, shop at the farmers market. So give them some extra love. Jumping into board business, start with executive. Patty, do you want to talk about our finances? I don't know if you want to jump in with people.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up on the big screen. We have some good news because we got our neighborhood grant. Oh, sorry. There, I didn't say that. This didn't happen.
Okay. So every quarter I am supposed to let you know, how we've been doing and what we've been doing. So starting in January, we had, you see in the, little yellow areas, we had about $11,700, $600 to start with, which wasn't too bad. Except we didn't get the grant for the year as of yet. It usually comes around in November, December, and we didn't have it, so we were starting to get a little nervous. And, maybe if I get a little bit distracted, I won't be in front of you. So what I do is I just keep track of everything that we spend. And what we, that check, number 1382 with no, nothing saying what was on was actually something that Sean gave me about an app that he had paid for and I needed to pay him back. So I forgot to put it in. We pay $525 a quarter for our new storage unit, which is on Main Street. And I see I have to give him another check at the end of the month. We do have, you know, tax monies that we have to spend. And it's getting a little more difficult with the 990 now. And heaven knows what it's going to be like next year. We took in only $288.62 in January. What you see below is what's in our savings account. When I don't take money out of there until I absolutely have to. So if we go up a little, we paid Zoom. We got $297.65 in that month of February. And you can see the food for the mixer that we had was $105. Oh, no, that was not the mixer.
That was for a meeting.
That was the meeting, yeah. So that was $105.08. March, we had a big payment to our board insurance. We need to have insurance for the board because there are people who would like to sue us for something at some time. Never had it happen, but good gracious, we don't want that to happen. The refreshments for March were $88.10, about the same amount that was today. And I had to buy more checks. I know checks are something nobody really knows about anymore, but I do send them to people. They work. But we had a great deal of donation in that coming in March. We took over $800, $850. We actually had a little money stuck somewhere that we can't get out. So do not use the Venmo. Do not. We can't figure out how to get the money out.
We'll get it.
We'll get it out. When we get it out, you can use it again. We have a square for Venmo. We have a square for PayPal. Use the PayPal. You might not like it, but at least we can use it. Now, I was getting very nervous about this because we were getting down below $10,000. And I was talking to the executive committee about maybe raising the amount for membership by $5 or $10 because it would give us some more. Then the first week in April, boom, I was the first one that got it too, the $7,000 neighborhood grant. And as soon as I saw it, next day I was there because I didn't want them to change their minds. Now we will have enough money to get through the year without worrying. Yeah, I'm very happy.
But we can still join, right?
Oh, definitely, still join, because that grant pays for things like our website, it pays for free newsletter, it pays for a lot of things. What you were paying for at $10, $20, $30 is just to say, I'm with you. And happily, we have a lot of businesses now at $50, $100, and $250 who are also saying that. So it keeps us going, and we try to do what you would like us to do. And we try to do it well. And if you are behind or you want to join, all you have to do is see me, and I will be very happy to take you through the process. And you cannot join without paying. There's about 12 of you out there somewhere. Sarah, remember. Anyway, I'll let you go. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for your work on this and explaining it to us. I just recently renewed our household membership and I paid by old fashioned check because there was some weird issue with the website. Not renewing properly, or just there was a glitch, and both
Yeah.
you and Sean were very kind and patient with me as I kept emailing you and saying I was having trouble.
Who are you?
But Catherine. Okay. So.
It's always good to put a face.
Yes, sorry, I should have introduced myself. So I was just wondering when I saw that and you mentioning the Venmo issue, which I'm not even on Venmo, I don't understand how it works either, but I saw PayPal as an option. And I was wondering about Zelle, because I do know how to use Zelle, it's right in my bank account, but PayPal, I'm trying not to use them because of the founder's political involvements.
I know, but it seems that every single founder now is having a political problem.
It's a good question on Zell. I'll look into whether our account qualifies for Zell. That's a great question.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
that goes straight to the bank account.
Whatever.
So, I will take an action item to look into that.
They will, and I'll growl at it. No, I understand about PayPal. That's why, I still accept checks.
I know, I'm glad you do, I want to.
Yeah, and then, I know at one time that's gonna be over, but it isn't yet. Anyone else have a question? Yes, sir.
I read in the Sunset Park newsletter that they don't take any city money. Is that true?
I don't know. Because Sunset Park, no, they take the money as well. A matter of fact, what's her name? Cena was the one that was bothering them to get it out. Yeah, well.
For sure, on the neighborhood council monthly meetings that we have with the other groups, they were leading the charge on getting that money.
Yes,
So for
she
sure,
was. So, I know there is one that doesn't use up their money. I'm not sure which one it is, but Chris might know. They don't use all their money, and I can't understand why. There's so much you can do with it. Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
Yes.
What's the board being insured for?
For anybody who wants, we're insured, I have a whole list of things we're insured for. It's 30 pages, but, if anyone wants to have a liability suit for us or whatever, it's us personally.
We're a 501c3.
Yeah, we're C3, so.
God forbid someone gets injured in an event or gets bug up their butt over something we say at a meeting and decides to sue. We live in a litigious society. I don't think any of the neighborhood organizations would get volunteers to be on the board or be actively involved if we weren't insured and knew they couldn't come after us.
And everyone does have.
That's the world we live in.
insurance.
Yeah, crazy.
It's essential to be insured.
Yeah,
Should
nowadays.
this organization, you might get investigated on whether you really are.
Oh, yes, that's true too, especially as a C3.
Yeah.
Cool. That said, while we did get the neighborhood grant, and I know we already mentioned it, if you haven't joined, please do join. We need the funds to support everything that you're hearing people talk about, all our efforts, the newsletter that goes out. Quick newsletter update is we're right about 2,200 recipients that get it twice a week. The open rate remains 60 to 65%. So really, really solid numbers and looking to continue to grow that. And as Patty teased up, we've got a couple of recent business members to join, and I know one's right here tonight, Rob Machio, so I just want to say thank you for joining. Which is probably a good transition into our task forces. I think there's a few of you that have some housing concerns, especially as it relates to Main Street parking lots that Rob raised in a Daily Press article last week. So let's talk about all things housing. And I'll actually say, Rob, do you want to say a couple words about sort of what premised you to write that, and we can use that as a launching point to go from there.
Yes.
I've been stewing on this idea, this plan to, build in parking lots 9, 10, and 11, the line behind Main Street. It's been a work in progress since 2019. When the city staff was putting together their housing element. For anybody who missed the article, it's really just a moment in time. As I was saying, I printed out copies of it. And if anybody wants one, just feel free to take it. I wrote 2,000 words. It's basically the top 10 reasons why you shouldn't build in the parking lots. And it was like cut down from 3,000 words, but it was the top 15 reasons. And then the city staff in their report, February 25th, they have 7 or 8 other reasons why it's so hard to build in those parking lots, because we all know those parking lots, they're very skinny. They're right on Nielsen Way, which is basically a highway. You know, there's so many reasons. They share garbage bins with the businesses on Main Street. It seems so impractical. But they every 2 years issue an RFP to tell the state how they're advancing with meeting affirmative housing and meeting the housing element mandate. And at this last meeting, I was talking with somebody, they decided to just sort of push everything forward. And I feel like it's moving the Main Street as an opportunity to build up. Because basically the city identified 5 city-owned properties where they want to build on or they want to make available for affordable housing. And Main Street, the parking lots, is on that list, and they've moved forward with the other 4. So it's not really a question of if this happens, it's a question of when it happens. And I think in light of that, and in light of the fact that the airport is increasingly becoming on people's radar as an opportunity to build instead of places like here, I think it's a good time to bring up our concerns, have those concerns about the parking lots behind Main Street. There's 200 acres of airport land that will become available, and 150-acre park would also be very nice. And 50 acres for other things that the city needs, like money, affordable housing, permanent supportive housing. Those things should all be on the table. And when people say it's a 200-acre park or nothing, you have to realize if that's the case, then the city's going to have to look elsewhere for affordable housing, and that comes right here in Ocean Park. So that's why I wrote the article when I did. That's a little.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Community then Ted. 2 former mayors.
I got my hand up first, yes. It is my understanding that the council is not moving forward to build housing on those parking lots at this time. Certainly, they've been there a long time. I remember back in the day when I was on the city council, and you know that was a long that was already being discussed, and it's you know, on the list, but I do not believe that the council is thinking about or planning to build housing on those lots at this time or in the next couple of years.
Is that in writing somewhere though, or how?
What?
Is that in writing somewhere?
No.
Ted, then John.
So Rob is a friend and a work colleague. And I acknowledge all the concerns he's raised about this, but I can tell you, as a former planning commission and city council member, I really don't think there's anything to worry about. That we went through this in 1989, for anybody who was around, they did original building housing on the parking lot said, we have to understand how this works. We had the guy from the Parks Department, the Park Master Plan. The state requires the city to do all these different plans on a regular basis, and one of the plans you have to do on a regular basis is a housing element. And it's basically a little game of kabuki theater. It is. They have to show the state, they say you need to build this many, you need to create opportunities to build this many units of housing. So city staff goes around and they identify various parcels, including city-owned land, which is a better place to build affordable housing because you don't have the land costs for the affordable housing development. So they've done all of that. Over the years, the Venn diagram between what's in the housing element and what actually gets constructed, there's very little overlap. fact, very frequently you see is new development places the city never identified as potential suitable sites for housing. And I don't think that Main Street lots will come into play anytime soon for a variety of reasons. As you mentioned, they're not conducive to being redeveloped. You have ingress, egress issues there, how do you do a trash pickup? There's all sorts of practical reasons not to build this. It's on that list just to keep the state happy, but I don't think they're gonna build it anytime soon. Among other reasons, when Elaine Polachek was talking about the city's budget issues, she did mention one of the things they did is they had to raise the housing trust fund to cover a lot of their expenses. So there's not a lot of money for the seed money that goes into those affordable housing projects. And frankly, when you wrote that article, I reached out to some council members and they say, doing anything on those Main Street lots is not even on our radar. So there's a variety of reasons I don't think it happened anytime soon. What I would suggest is organization does is keep an eye on it. And when it comes to the point where there's actually something on an upcoming city council agenda where they talk about wanting to send out a request for proposals for a developer to build on the Main Street lots, then yeah, that's the time to get excited. But I think if you try to do anything now, the council will go, well, we're not gonna do anything there. It's just, so they did the RFPs for the 4th and Arizona site and for Bergamot. Those are places that make sense to build housing because they have transit. There's not really any transit of any sort that serves Main Street. So I think your concerns were very well founded, but I just don't think that there's reason to go into panic at this point until there's really something closer on the horizon that might happen with Main Street.
John, you had your hand up?
So, I've been talking about this for months and months and months with this group. About what's happening on the Main Street part. Now, I do not share the optimism that our former mayors have, because I see the city has to build affordable housing. Private money is not showing up. Public money is not showing up. So the city is going to have to do something. And I agree that right now, as we talked about, Rob, they're looking at, Bergamot, and they're looking at north of Arizona. It's just a matter of time before they look at the Main Street parking lots. I do not believe that all the things that I've heard about how unsuited they are for building are really relevant. They're, if you've been to New York, they have these narrow row houses. I mean, it's engineering can do a lot. You can, there's talk about, changing the 2-stairway regulation. So, you can build a little higher. It'll put us up to 6 stories because that's about how high a ladder on a fire engine goes. So as I've been saying, I think for us, and I think this is where I agree with Rob, is, if you don't want to build there, then as an organization, it's up to us to figure out where they should go. And I don't think anyone's really ready to answer that question. Why are they in the Main Street parking lots? We have to remember why. They are there and they are zoned there because Mayor Sue Himmelrich, along with Phil Brock, submitted a housing element that the state rejected. Out of that came the builder's remedy, and that builder's remedy allows a lot of tall buildings other places. But what they decided to do with the zoning code was say, in order to protect the R1 neighborhoods, now we do not live in an R1 neighborhood, what we will do is we will build on the boulevards. That's why you see developments on Wilshire, on Lincoln. Main Street is part of that, just like Ocean Park Boulevard, just like Montana. The building height from the city's perspective is 54 feet on Main Street. When you add in bonuses, you can get for moderate and low income housing. Those buildings could easily be 16 stories. So what we need to think of as an organization is, what is our position on housing on the parking lots? And to Rob's point, what's the alternative? I think it's important, if you don't want to see it built, you have to get in the city an alternative. He said the airport, I talked about, that strip of land in Memorial Park that used to be Fisher Lumber, right next to the train station. So these are the types of things we as an organization have to think of. Housing is coming, right? Question is, how do we shape that? So I can't believe I agree with Rob on something, but.
There was a hand in the corner.
Yeah, so I want to echo what you said about the housing density bonuses. And what we have to remember is the governor is pushing hard on the coastal commission a number of years ago when Mr. Martin presented. I asked him if he'd spoken to the coastal commission because one of the big things they have is removing parking. And we know during the summer that those parking lots get full, so those lots behind them. And so that means there'll be less parking there, it'll impact the Main Street, businesses. The other thing is I have to say that we don't have the luxury to sit back. We do not. And lots of people have a local government experience. I worked in Sacramento for many years as a legislative director for somebody. And once those ideas are out there and they're moving, they don't stop, they just keep coming back, and you've got to kill them early if you're going to kill them at all. And the other question is, what is the housing density in particular areas? The R1 areas, Sacramento has been pushing hard against them, but that goes to the people who own the land in that area, gives them the ability to develop it. I don't think anybody's going to be developing it, doing that after purchasing the lot.
So on the point on the parking lots, I think people have to remember, you just dig a hole in the ground. So I agree, the coastal commission is probably not gonna let those go, so you're just gonna bury them underneath the same number of ones. So I don't think that's really an issue that we can use to, get them to point somewhere else. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mark?
That causes a lot of problems. I mean, the city's not gonna build this housing. What the city's doing is they're going out and they're saying, Mr. Developer, we're gonna give you this land for free. We're gonna let you lease it for $1 a year for 50 years. You build it, we're not gonna put any money into it, you build it. Well, the coastal commission's gonna say, you have to replace that parking. You're gonna dig 4 stories down, the developer's gonna go, it doesn't pencil out. It's not gonna pencil out. The federal government's not providing, there's no HUD money. There's all of this construction going on with Palisades. No developer in the right mind is gonna build that lot over there. But the city has to offer it. The city, the state, it's on the housing element. It's been accepted. It's sitting there, and the city has to at some time, say it's available to use. But no, I think no developer is going to want to do it. And I think the coastal commission is one of the things. I mean, one of the things about the coastal commission is you have to go to the coastal commission. And no developer wants to go to the coastal commission. It's a risk and what's going to happen. They're going to go. So I think the coastal commission is very important.
So I 100% agree, Mark, and I think the other thing, sorry, I'm part of the housing commission. I think the other thing that we have to remember.
Housing committee. Sorry. The OPA Housing Committee.
I think what you said is, I 100% agree, but I think the other thing we have to remember is there's only one thing standing in the way of that, and that is Measure GS and ULA in Los Angeles. And these are under fire because what people want to do is they want to, remember the village trailer park and how this worked? I think you do, Mark. And the guy who made all the money was the guy that got all the entitlements, right? Wasn't the builder, wasn't the person who owned the land. It was Mark, whatever his name was. So for us, right, what people want to do financially, when they want to build housing, they say, I'll build it, but I don't want to keep it, right? I want to be able to sell it that first time. And Measure GS and ULA are preventing that. That is why you haven't seen anything built at the old bowling alley, the Gelson's project, and almost everywhere else. So that is really something else that is limiting the ability for anyone to build, right? It's the economic decline. So thank you.
Catherine?
Rob, thank you so much for your article. It was very informative, much appreciated. And thank you everyone for your robust debate on this. I just want to add that I think that we might not want to assume what a developer will and will not do based on site conditions. With the way that those apartments or condos could go up high, they're going to have a unique ocean view in Ocean Park that is like the towers, but nothing else has been able to be built like that in a long time and may not be able to for a while. And not all of it, you have to remember, is something that has to be affordable housing. It doesn't have to be 100% affordable housing. So they could use the density bonus law, and they could use some percentage of affordable housing and trick the you know what out of the other units and sell them for a boatload of money because it's such a desirable place to live. And if you can get a penthouse on the top floor of this narrow building with lots of beautiful windows with this beautiful ocean view, some developer very well might do it. I think that it is naive to sit back and say it's unlikely to happen because of X, Y, Z, rather than being proactive and taking the bull by the horns, taking a position on it and making sure that what we want to happen happens and that what we don't want to happen doesn't happen. I'm not about sit back and just wait and let something as important as this go by the wayside when we have an opportunity to have a voice, take a position. Rob has already explained that this is not a matter of if, but when. And yet for some reason, we're disregarding what his knowledge is about this. And it seems like he has researched it quite heavily and is very invested in it. So I think that we should be open to this being a real possibility and not say, let's just keep an eye on it, but let's do what we think we want to happen and come to some sort of consensus on this because our voices will be better together. And as an Ocean Park resident, I'm very concerned about those buildings. I didn't come to this neighborhood because there will be buildings built like that in this neighborhood. This is not in keeping with the kind of neighborhood that this is. And if we want to protect the kind of beachside community that we have, I think that we could consider where else could we put this? Where does it make sense? And I think Rob makes a really great suggestion that we have this entire huge opportunity with the airport space to have some of the housing there. The whole thing doesn't need to be a park. We could have housing and a park. And so I would like to propose that we start talking about that proposal that Rob has brought to all of us in this very helpful article and take it from there rather than just saying, oh, it's probably not going to happen, because that gives me zero comfort. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I'll come back to you. Sorry. I'll defer to the two of you to decide.
I also would like to thank Rob for his article. I thought it was excellent. I was very involved in 1989 when we did everything we could to stop that project from happening, and I think we were successful because we were proactive. We were not reactive. We were proactive. We brought numbers to City Hall and we stopped it before they even thought about doing it. So I think it's really, really important that as a neighborhood, we do that again. We don't want to be surprised and hear that it's already happening and that there's nothing we can do about it. So I support Rob.
Guess I'm going to be the outlier in this room. First of all, I'm going to commend Rob for making a really strong statement in favour of the airport, because I think that was great that you did that. As for everybody fighting against a smidgen of development in that strip, I have to say, maybe smidgen is the wrong word, and yes, maybe one could control the density to some degree, but actually, look, Main Street is dying. We've just heard a whole thing about how the businesses are struggling. Those parking lots are sitting there empty because not enough people are using the businesses. And I do remember talking to a council person, maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago, and I remember then asking that council person, sort of, what could we do to really enhance the business activity on Main Street? And that person at that time said to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but she said to me, well, we have the disadvantage of only having, potential customers for the street on one side of Main Street. We don't have much development on the other side. And she talked to me about how so many successful retail businesses have a radius of people living within a radius that come and use the businesses on the street. So I'm just not sure about the perspective of some future people living close to Main Street to enliven the street. I don't know why everyone's so keen to keep it exactly the way it is, because the way it is isn't working.
Mark. Then Jordan.
Everybody agrees that it's a bad idea.
I mean, I think.
No, I just said I don't agree.
I don't either.
The housing, and the housing on Main Street,
Housing is a bad idea.
on Main Street parking lots.
That's what she was speaking to.
I think there's variations obviously within that, but no, as a basic idea, I'm not fully opposed to it, no.
But, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, the problem is that there's a housing element that's been approved by the city, it's at the state. The state law required, it's sitting there, it's already done, it's a done deal. Is that housing is sitting in the city housing element, the state has approved it, the city is not gonna amend it. It's there, and you just have to wait to see what happens. The question is, what are you gonna do about it? And the only thing you can do about it is change state law, that's it.
And I just want to try and interpret sort of the gap that you two see there is, I'm guessing not everyone is opposed to any housing on Main Street. I think a lot of people's concerns is how high we're going to go with it. As opposed, at least the feedback I've gotten from a lot of people is the ability to go 8 or 16 stories is very concerning. Sorry, Jordan.
Yeah,
Jordan had her hand up.
sorry, I think we should.
And please, before you say your question, explain your relationship to Main Street.
Yep, we just opened a business on Main Street, called Two Kind Brows. We're at, what's it called? Two Kind Brows, the brow studio, we do waxing, tinting, illumination. Yeah, for 2.5 years now, but this is our first storefront, so we're super excited about it. I just wanted to share maybe like the business owner's perspective with all of this. We opened 2 weeks after the fires. Obviously it was a much softer launch than we were hoping for. That's another story. What I will say is my business is based off of appointments. 95% of bookings happen at the time. We do accept walk-ins, but we're usually booked up like 4 to 5 days in advance. And the reason we chose Main Street was because of the parking availability. So this is like very concerning to me and my business. We looked at spaces on Abbott, I'm a Venice resident. We lived on Montana, and we chose Main Street because our clients need to be able to park and easily access the space. We ran into a lot of issues with this in Venice. And I'm sure a lot of other Main Street businesses operate similarly. I also just like love that Main Street feels so local, and like I love the vibe of it. So I think the other piece of my personal concern is just like the skyscrapers would, I don't know, just maybe damage the integrity of the community a little bit, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, but I think just picking up on that, Main Street has been fragile for the last few years. And what I can't imagine is how those businesses that are there and that can't survive at all, given a 1, 2, 3 year construction period, which removes parking.
Yes.
Whether it's small buildings, big buildings, any buildings, Main Street dies in the process.
I want to jump in for just a minute because we are going to have to move on at some point to other agenda items. And there's a couple points that I wanted to jump in about. One is to make a pitch for our housing committee. Robbie, I believe we have a meeting next week that is dedicated to talking about issues like this and helping us figure out what our positions are and what our action items should be vis-a-vis making public statements, advocating to city council members, city staff, et cetera. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, 5 to 6:30 at Ashland Hill next Monday. And I think action items are probably where we should, take it. We've been able to voice our opinions here, but yeah, we should get some tactical next steps that we plan to work through. Anybody can come. Ashland Hill.
Yep, and it'll be in the newsletter Thursday and again on Monday. Please come to that. It's a great way to lean in. I'll get back to you, Sean, in 1 sec, and getting actively involved on this issue, with hopes that come the next meeting, that committee can come back with some proposals for here's what we think OPA should be doing. I also want to say just background for many of you that haven't come to meetings regularly. The upzoning of Main Street in general has been on the board's mind for a few years now. It was 2 years ago during the housing element crisis when Phil Brock led the city council's vote to upzone Main Street in general to be 6 stories. Forget the parking lots. This is existing buildings, which is probably not to be an alarmist, but or to, say, oh, here's another burning building to go deal with. I personally am more concerned with that than the parking lots, because I do think it's gonna be a long, long haul before anything happens to the parking lots, and we're gonna have a lot of opportunities to weigh in on that. But a property owner today could file an application to tear down their building and build a 6-story building on Main Street. That is in the law today. Thank you, Phil, for that. And we've been talking about how to be leaning, whispering in council members' ears and whatever to try and peel that back, or what we can do to make sure that things like that don't happen. Again, I'm going to punt a lot of this to housing committee meeting next week, but I just wanted to weigh in and to make sure everyone knows this isn't something that this has been on our mind now for a couple of years and stuff, and the types of issues we're actively trying to figure out how to deal with, both quietly and loudly. John, you had your hand up.
So I want to go back to what you had mentioned, right? Which was, the success you had in 1989. That ship has sailed. That is no longer relevant in today's world. And the reason for that is what John and I have alluded to. And that is housing is going to get built. State has decided we're going to build. The question is where? And as we have talked about, a few of us, decision was made by the past council to protect single-family neighborhoods, and in its place, put these crazy zoning heights on the boulevard. Remember, it's Ocean Park, it's Montana, it's Main Street. Where does the housing go? Rob actually answered this question, right? Because he understands it's a critical question. It's a question that we have to decide. And when you make that decision, you have to remember that this is a zero-sum game. If it doesn't go here, it goes there. So there will not be any citywide movement to say no. If we don't want it here, we need to stand up to Zena, or we need to stand up to Nancy or to Tricia and go, we're not putting it here. You don't have any there, put it there. That is what we face. You have to be prepared for this as time comes by. It's coming. Where does it go? So if you want to fight it, you have to fight for Ocean Park, right? Versus, the bigger parts of the city. So.
And the names John was mentioning were neighborhood presidents of largely single family houses, neighborhoods. Judy.
I just wanted to say that there are some places in the city where housing is absolutely appropriate and could be built or modified right away. And one of those areas is the business park on Ocean Park Boulevard. Those buildings that were office buildings are mostly empty now because the people are not working in offices anymore. So, or as much as they used to. So I think when we think about where housing should be, we should look at the areas that used to be really filled with people working, and now maybe should be places where people live. And the business park is one of those places in my mind, and that's because I drive Ocean Park Boulevard a lot. And so I see it and I think about it because I know that it's not filled.
But thank you for that, but it's private property.
Yes, I know, but they're not against it.
Well, what the city has and the state has said, we have to build low-income housing, which is the Main Street parking lots.
Yeah.
And, as Mark and I talked about, financing is tough. So is that realistic? I think we have to judge and see if that's realistic.
Talk with them. It's not out of the.
Philosophically, right? But economically, they're.
Yeah, well, they have to figure it out.
So we only have 10 minutes left in the meeting.
Let's hear from Ted, though.
Ted gets the last word and then,
Well, I just want to go back to my original point. I think these are all very valid concerns. I think you just have to bear in mind what we heard earlier is how under-resourced the city is and how slowly they moved that Fourth and Arizona site when the council killed the hotel project there. That was early 2021. It took until 2025 for them to issue an RFP for that site and for the Bergman site. It'll take a long time to even think about having the bandwidth and planning and community development to issue an RFP for the Main Street lot. So that was my suggestion, just remain vigilant, but let's not get out there with the pitchforks right now. And I think what you do and bear in mind, there'll be at least one more election, possibly two more council elections before this Main Street lots even comes into focus. Go out and talk to your current council members. I'll read you a text from one. I'm not gonna tell you who. We aren't doing any sort of development on Main Street, not even in the thought pattern. So just go out there one-on-one and let the council members know you have some concerns and see what sort of response you get. Hopefully it'll evolve my concerns.
and just echoing that, never hesitate to reach out to your council members. They are pretty responsive and engaged and respond to most people's emails and calls, or at least try to, and they don't know what they're not hearing from. And yes, it'll be great for them to hear something from Ocean Park Association as the association. We'll figure out through the housing committee if or what and when to do that. But in parallel, don't ever hesitate to reach out with your concerns, suggestions, etc. They often, they get a lot of voices, and if we're not part of those voices, then they don't know that there's concerns. So I remember when we were doing the Main Street closures, they got 10x the number of emails of people that were concerned about the Main Street closures and pro, and they're like, it seems like the neighborhood's anti it, but that's just because sometimes the loudest voices are the most motivated people. So be motivated. And then see you Monday at 5:30 p.m. in Ashland Hill for the housing committee meeting. We're gonna have to speed through the last agenda items because we only have 9 minutes left. Kelly has been trying to get a mixer on the books for us.
But they don't want to give us freebies. We were talking about trying to do it at the backyard of Shay J the week of April, like 24th-ish. People into that? I don't know. This guy's in.
So we often in the past have sponsored some food or drink. I don't think they're willing to, and so we just have to make a decision of, do we have the money to spend on some drinks or food, or just make it, hey, we're all getting together and everyone's on their own. And so putting that out there.
Isn't togetherness reason? The businesses are having a hard time. Buy a beer. Meet your neighbors.
Go for a happy hour.
Right? You were gonna do it anyway.
Any concerns if OPA does not participate financially, we just use it as a get together? Cool.
What is this getting into the OPA get?
OPA happy hour at JJ. So
I have 2 things already scheduled for that night.
we'll figure out the date. I'm more concerned about conceptually if we're not.
Also, give Patty $10 if you have it.
What date are we thinking about? April 23rd?
Tuesday, right?
Or 22nd?
22nd.
I know that's next week, so we may have to push it later at this point because it's really soon. So. It's arguably in Ocean Park, depending on who you talk to.
We've gone back and forth.
There's a lot of gray area. We're trying to.
And what is clear, it's.
Just want to say, yes, we could use some money. I will talk to Sean about the amount and how it could be used. If you want to do that, I think a week away is
Too soon.
too soon.
Wait,
But,
understood.
yeah, we can, thanks. But you see, we can't spend any of that money from the city if it's not alcohol.
Understood.
We then have to spend our own money that the members give us.
Chris, question.
I would advocate for not spending any money on it. I think it would be great to organize something and let's see what kind of response we get on it. I think that makes more sense, right?
Cool. Sounds-
we could easily pay for advertising.
Yeah.
Advertising.
Okay.
I would say no.
Sounds good. We'll figure it out as exec committee and go from there. It'll probably get punted to the first week of May. Just because it's too soon otherwise. We're also talking to Mudwater about hosting an event there in a month or two, so. And if you have any other venues more traditionally in Ocean Park or elsewhere that would be interested in doing this, please let us know. We are a volunteer organization and we need other people to jump in and help.
Let's
Yep.
just put Lula back on that list.
Yep.
Lula's great.
Yep. AIDS Life Cycle Finish Line Festival is June 7th. They have reached out and said if they would love to have an open table there, if we have bandwidth for it. If anyone's interested in staffing that, please reach out to me. It'll be in one of the beach parking lots on June 7th. Gonna go super quick, unless there's any specific committee reports around Lincoln or anything else, I'll let people raise their hand if there is. The May meeting agenda is pretty busy. I'm not gonna be here though, and neither is Patty. Robbie and Kelly are gonna be herding all of the cats. We expect to have State Assembly member Rick Zver there. Mayor Lana Negrete and Sunny Wang, our city water resource manager. So it should be a fun agenda for May. Hope to see you then. I think it's May 12th, Monday, May 12th.
Also, if there's any board member who would like to volunteer to bring food here, I won't be here in May and neither will Sean, so, somebody might, I'd be happy to reimburse you if you are interested.
We also want to see if there is a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting by a board member. Robbie, motion. Will, second. Board members only. All in favor? Any opposed? Great. We only have a couple minutes. If there's any open items that people wanted to speak to, non-agenda, Tony.
Just real quick, about membership, talk to your neighbors in our Ocean Park neighborhood, we do live on Ring, and I'm always asking the neighbors about the Ocean OPA. Just talk to your members about being, the nominal fee, I think, and just talk to everyone, in the neighborhood about joining OPA and being part of the community.
It's $10, $20, and $30
Right.
a year.
Tax.
A year.
Don't share it.
Cool. Chris.
For any board members, the neighborhood council meets this Saturday. OPA has been taking care of the agendas, for the last couple of months. Patty and Dave jump on sometimes, but there's been some robust discussion. I did send a recap to the executive committee last month. Maybe I'll just do that to the entire board, after this week, but we normally start taking agenda items on Wednesday. I think I got 7 in my inbox today already, so there's lots to talk about, but if any board member wants to jump in on that, they should feel welcome to.
And I want to thank Chris for everything that he does. I mean, Dave and I sat through the neighborhood council for a few months, and you're sort of relieved you're back.
2 years ago, I made it 3 months and had to step away. I'm on month 3 now, so we'll see.
It's not an easy spot to be.
Cool.
Because, I'm sure.
10 a.m. third Saturday every month on Zoom.
All right, unless there's anything else, is there a motion to adjourn? Tony, motion. Chris, second. All in favor, board members only. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon.
Right.